So welcome, my name's Simon Dell. I run a company called Cemoh, mispronounced many times by many different people. I'm going to be the MC, something, interviewer, whatever we're going to call me today. Just sort of for full disclosure, Kathy is one of my clients and has been for a year or so, a couple of years, 18 months or so. Laz is just a kind of hanger on. He won't leave me alone. But, you know. No, I met Laz. I met Laz through a cold email actually a while back, didn't I? And then you ended up being on my podcast, and I've not been able to shake you ever since.
No, I'm like
so we're basically going to we're going to talk about e-commerce today. I've got about 45 minutes worth of questions and all those kind of bits and pieces here. And then we'll open it up to the floor. So if you do have any questions, you can either hold them to the end. If it's desperate that you want to ask a question based on something we're talking about, please just put your hand up and we'll take it there and then. But otherwise, it's pretty casual. And I was going to say, phones off.
Sorry. Yes.
No, it's all right. There's always one. That's it.
Always.
So look, I guess the first thing to do is we'll do the introductions. As I said, my name's Simon. Cemoh we're Australia's only labour hire marketing agency. I still can't get it right myself. I'm in marketing and I still can't get it right. We basically hire out marketing staff, and we do all the traditional stuff that a marketing agency does, but we hire out marketing staff. Some of our marketing staff work in people's businesses 1 day a week. Some of them work full time, so it depends on what the business needs. So if you need someone in your business just to help with marketing, even if it is just 1 day a week, we can help with that. We'll get to a little bit of an overview from these guys next. So Kathy, do you want to give us the Kathy history in a couple of minutes?
Sure thing. Hello everybody, I'm Kathy. I'm the founder and owner of Pure Dash. So Pure Dash is an online destination for women's activewear styles. I started Pure Dash back in 2014 out of my 1-bedroom apartment study. And I started with the savings that I had in the bank after leaving the finance job that I'd been in for about 7 years. So unfortunately, no family investment or outside investment of any kind. So that meant that I had to just sort of begin with the labels that I could fit in my study, which at the time was about 3. So fast forward to today, 6 years and a lot of hard work. We now have a warehouse over at West End. That's where we do our e-commerce shoots. That's where we do a lot of our content shoots. We pick and pack orders. We do all of our customer service. And we have a team of 6 women, so 100% female-based team, which is something that I'm really proud of. It's empowering females and I guess creating opportunities for women is something that's really important to me. So I'm really happy that it can tie in with my brand.
Awesome. Laz?
I'm a guy, but I actually, I'm in women's fashion as well. So I co-founded a label called Apero with my wife, who is a designer by trade. So kind of similar story. We've been around for a little bit less. We launched in September 2017. Same thing, we kind of thought, I think the discussion was, should we buy a house or take a massive risk and use our deposit for starting a business? And I went, business!
No question.
Yeah, so here we are. You know, there's been a lot of tops and turns and everything like that, but the only difference between, say, Kathy and myself is we started a brand, so we weren't able to start with other brands, so that's probably a different learning experience, but a lot of similarities. I'm the only non-woman that works for Apero. We're all about empowering women. One of our values is empowering women through fashion. So, our whole kind of reason for existing is to help social justice and to empower women. And, Rachel's philosophy about that is a woman can change her perspective on herself and change other people's perspectives on them, the way they dress and present themselves. So, we're not out there to make money. If we did that, we would just be a fast fashion label. So that's kind of,
Let's just talk very quickly about the divergence really early on, because you have your own brand and your own label, whereas Kathy, you've built yours on the back of other people's brands, but now you have your own brand as well.
Yep.
So why didn't you sit there day one and go, I'm going to create my own Pure Dash label and sell that? What made you decide that it was, using existing brands out there that was going to be the way forward?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So the reason I started Pure Dash was because at the time I sort of recognized, and so this is back in 2014, remember, so there was a lot less, I guess, activewear labels around back then. I recognized that there was a lot of emerging activewear labels that were starting to come up and looked really exciting, but they weren't necessarily that accessible at the time. So my thinking was, well, why not create a collection that I really love and let that be my business rather than, I guess, trying to compete against, all of these incredible brands that already existed. So that's what I sort of ran with. And then I guess over time it evolved, and COVID had a lot to do with it as well, why we ended up starting our own brand, which we now carry as well, which is Pure Dash, the label. But that's essentially why we started with other labels.
And there was no point with you, Laz, that you thought we can have other people's labels on here? It was all about having your own brand?
No, well, Rach is a designer by trade, so she studied fashion and she worked in costumes in New York, and she had this diverse background in kind of fashion design. So she always wanted to, if she wasn't designing, she was designing for a label locally, and she thought, well, if I'm not going to work for someone else, I'd rather use my creativity to try and push that. So I think for her, the driving factor behind wanting to start her own label was more so the outworking of her own kind of creative, inspiration. So that's probably the reason why we went down our own label versus, going down that path. But,
and this is by no means a criticism or anything. Do you think it's easier starting with other people's brands than creating your own one? Because I mean, you've obviously done both now.
Yeah.
And you've had to go through the whole production and sourcing and all those kind of things.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point too that Laz made. I don't have a design background. My background is finance and business. So it never occurred to me, I just don't have that creativity, unfortunately. I wish I did, but I don't. So that was a reason as well. But also, depending on your own situation, if you have that, creativity or not, I do believe that it is a little bit easier starting with other people's labels. It allows you to test a little bit easier, I think, because obviously you're not sort of tied to huge production runs only to find out maybe you didn't make the right choice. You can sort of buy, maybe half a dozen styles at a time, find a winner, and then you sort of know that you can run with that sort of style, or that's the sort of style that your customer really loves. Does that sort of answer?
Yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I guess obviously the benefit for you now is that margin-wise, your own product has considerably more profit margin than reselling someone else's.
Absolutely. So there's pros and cons to both. You do get better margins when you're manufacturing again because you're doing such huge production runs. But there are also a lot of costs involved with that. There's sample costs. There's the design cost if you're not doing the designs yourself. There can be quite hefty shipping costs, especially through COVID. Shipping sort of quadrupled or even more.
It raised 600 to 1,000%.
So there's sort of pros and cons to both, and I guess it's just a matter of. Thanks, Laz.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of, I guess, knowing the benefits to each way, and knowing what resources you have access to as well.
Let's talk about that sourcing and shipping. Obviously you had a bit of a head start. Your wife had been down that road already. But talk to me about that journey, because there might be some people here that are manufacturing their own thing and they want to sell it online, but there's also people here that might be going, I want to get something off, overseas or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Where did you explain what the process is to go through to kind of find something and overseas and we'll probably get a different view from the both of you here.
Yeah, well, I guess so. From my point of view, from what I've been shown from the internal how Rach works with production, and so we manufacture out of China, but she had a long-standing relationship with our suppliers from her previous roles. So a lot of that hard work of actually trying to find a supplier you can work with was done by the time that we started our company. So
and there was no issues with those suppliers working with her, even though she'd worked
No,
somewhere
because
else?
it's everyone. You know, like I don't want to kind of give the secrets away, but
Right.
you know, the same supplier is probably supplying all the major retailers in Australia.
I think that's something you said to me last year that kind of I was like, okay, wow. So like there was, you know, whilst you know we spend all this time on, those websites looking for products and things like Alibaba and AliExpress and all those
Yeah.
kind of things. Essentially, most of the big, you know, H&M and Zara, and they're all coming from a very small group of manufacturers.
It would be. So our supply, for instance, they're actually based in Australia. So for us, we don't have to worry about managing the factories and any of that kind of thing because it's a supplier that's based here. So we deal in Australian dollars. It's all that kind of thing. But then obviously they manage multiple factories in China. So
Are they their factories or are they?
yeah, they're their
Okay,
factories.
right.
So it's you know there's less of a risk because they're in Australia, they're local, but they obviously are Chinese citizens as well.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of you know less of a risk factor. Whereas I guess if you're trying to you know say you got an idea, you want to sell shoes, you know I wouldn't even know how to start looking for a supplier. Like Kathy could definitely talk more about that, but
Yeah.
you know you'd have to look on Alibaba, then you have to start a conversation with the supplier and get a sample and start the dialogue, and it could be a very long process to get to a product.
Yeah.
You know, like if you want to produce a shoe like this, it could be a couple of years in the development cycle to get there.
So where was your starting point with that, Kathy? Obviously, you've got the business running. I presume at that point you've got some, you know, the cash flow is positive. You've got a little bit that you can invest into this process. What was day one when you went, right, I'm going to create my own Pure Dash label?
Yep, so it started on Alibaba, basically going through and speaking to just pages and pages of different suppliers, finding out who owns it. Ideally, you want to be dealing with the owner, you know, what their ethics are, if they do have any sort of accreditations, depending on what your values are and what, you know, you're hoping to achieve. But basically the way that I did it was have a spreadsheet with every supplier's name and then notes about their communication, prices, timeframes, you know, where it was manufactured, you know, things like sample costs, minimums, minimums per colour, style, size, all those sorts of things.
How many suppliers do you think you would have had on there?
Oh, I probably didn't do as much as I should. I had about 10.
Okay.
And I did get quite lucky. But having said that, I did get a handful of samples that were just really wrong. So
Actually, I can add to that.
Unfortunately, it's, yeah.
Yeah, so as we went down more the sustainable, ethical route, so we're looking for, so our factories are certified, you know, ethical and all that
So
kind of
is
stuff,
ours,
but sourcing materials, ironically in China, it's very hard to source sustainable materials. So we had to look at things like India and, you know, Portugal, all these places. So the manufacturing processes are quite backwards compared to somewhere like China. China, there's a stigma about being manufactured in China,
really
but
advanced.
China is
Yeah.
the best country in the world to manufacture a lot of things in because they've been doing it for so long and they've got the infrastructure. So you go to someone in Bangladesh and their materials are amazing, but you get a sample back, you send your own sample to them saying, hey, can you please copy this? And, you know, it looks like a kid's drawn a design on a, you know, thing. It's just unbelievable
And
the
sometimes
difference.
they'll be like, yeah, absolutely, we can do
Yeah,
that.
we've
And then
matched it
it's just
100%. And they
nothing
send the
like-
sample back and you're like, okay, no, that's not it. So, you know, it's a complete mixed bag whether you're going to get what
Yeah,
you want
it's a
back.
numbers
And
game, unfortunately. There's no sort of, unless you know, obviously unless you have a contact already or somebody can recommend, you know, a supplier and they've already done the hard work, it just takes a bit of time.
And
Trial
from
and error.
start to finish, what do you reckon from you landing with a product that you could sell from the point when you started investigating? How long is that?
Including shipping and manufacturing
Yeah.
and everything. I would say around a month doing the research on who I wanted to use.
Yep.
Sampling usually takes about 2 weeks. So that's when you've got your designs, everything ready. That's about 2 weeks to ship. So then it ships from there, your bulk, you know, 6 to 8 weeks, and then a month shipping if you're doing it by sea, which
Okay.
at the moment is, you know, is the best way to do it in terms of cost.
Yeah.
So what's that? My maths isn't very good.
I
Which
was
is terrible.
I
As
was-
someone
yeah,
with
I
a
wasn't
finance
adding that
First
background.
is
background.
like 1 month and then like, okay.
But
Probably
wait,
about
I mean,
3 months,
if
4
you think
months.
about when you first went, I'm going to have a Pure Dash
It was
product, to when
probably about
actually
6
appearing,
months. It was about 6
Okay,
months because
that's
I was
pretty good.
really busy, doing all of the usual things that I did in the business, as well as trying to sort of, manage and coordinate this manufacturing side of it.
And,
Yeah,
and
I'd say about 6 months.
And I guess for everyone's benefit here, we've got 2 fashion labels, 2 brands, 2 female brands. I guess most of these things apply to whatever it is that you want to create potentially.
Yeah, I think it's
online.
pretty universal.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the product is, it's the same thing.
yeah.
There's probably nuances in how to develop a product. Obviously, electronic product would be different, but sourcing's the same thing.
Same sort of process. Yeah.
The exhibition that's in China, and I've completely forgotten its name. I was trying to write it down. I was trying to remember it. Did either of you ever go to China? No.
So I've been to China multiple times
Okay,
now.
but not for this purpose.
No.
Okay.
I was thinking about it before COVID
Yes.
happened, so it's just sort of obviously
I was
completely
too.
off
My
the
wife
table.
told me I wasn't allowed to go.
No.
We had flights
Not the
booked
right
to
time.
Guangzhou as COVID hit.
Right.
And we had to cancel, and we couldn't cancel because we couldn't get onto the airline because they were shut down because of COVID. So it was this weird thing, but got sorted. But
I've met people who've been to that, and I can't for the life of me. If anyone can remember the name of the exhibition in China, I can't remember the.
It's not the Alibaba one.
No. It's
at the
October, November
convention
time. Isn't it?
centre. It's crazy.
Someone had said to me that they'd gone for a week, and they'd walked for 8 hours every day for that week, and still hadn't seen everything.
Yeah, their convention centre is probably 5 Suncorp stadiums kind of next to each other, all linked.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And they said the other thing was you obviously then had face-to-face conversations with potential suppliers. They said the challenge is that you go with one idea and come away with 20 ideas.
Yeah.
And they were like, there's all these other things that you could do. Focus is obviously a challenge with one of those things. Let's talk about the. We've talked about the sourcing. Just touch on the shipping. Is there anything that people ought to know about shipping? And I say this because some other friends of mine are shipping stuff into America and have been for the past year and a half, and they ship candles, and amongst other things. And most of the time they'd labelled the shipping as gift, something like that, right? Yeah. And this time they'd labelled it, someone had labelled it, the shipping company had labelled it as candles for what it actually was. And since that point, it's been stuck for 3 months in American customs, just because of that change of the descriptor. And suddenly candles are a problem, but ambiguous gift wasn't a problem. Have you kind of experienced anything like that? I mean, obviously there's been delays, and you said 600% increase in
air
costs?
freight because all the flights stopped. So
Yeah.
a lot of logistics providers, they'll say, we do air freight, but they're just buying space on commercial flights. They just chuck it in the cargo hold, and they don't have their own planes all of the time, except if they're DHL or USPS or something like that. So that's interesting. It's good to learn about that. Obviously, so sea freight wasn't impacted, but then it's another month on sea freight.
Are you using an Australian-based shipping, or were you?
No, so our supplier handles the logistics to Australia, and
Right.
then we handle the
fantastic.
logistics. So
Okay.
but still, we're just reliant on him talking to them and finding out what's going on.
Was yours the same, Kathy? Are you reliant on the supplier doing it, or?
We were actually air freighting some of ours, especially through COVID, because it became really difficult to get stock because a lot of our suppliers were either selling out or, they had delays coming from China as well. So we were air freighting with DHL. But now that we've moved to shipping, it is something that our suppliers do organise.
Okay.
They generally, if they're a pretty well set up manufacturer, they'll generally have their own contacts over there.
Okay.
So that then lands here at the port, and you're responsible for clearing it and getting it picked up and everything. With sea freight, with air freight, it's to your door.
Let's talk about the tech stack that you guys are using. This may interest some people, but I think it's something that isn't really highlighted a lot when it comes to e-commerce. Your website, what's that? We'll start with Laz. The website, what's that built on?
Shopify.
Shopify? Yep. Okay. The basic Shopify or Shopify Plus?
We're on Shopify Plus now.
Okay. So what's that?
Crazy.
I was going to say, what's that costing you like a month? I mean, do they? Is it a flat fee, or how does Shopify Plus
So
work?
Shopify Plus is at the moment we're at a point where we just get charged a flat fee.
Okay.
But then if our revenue goes above a certain threshold, it's something ridiculous, like 50 million or something.
Okay.
Or when you get to that point, then they start charging you a percentage of your income as well.
And why Shopify or Shopify Plus? What sort of?
So I'm from an IT background.
Yeah.
So I was in banking and then sales in business to business IT sales, and I moved into marketing. So even though I was a non-technical role, I learned a lot about IT, what works, what doesn't. So I have a very good eye for platforms and what works, and working for an IT company, always trying to retrofit things. It's always better just to buy the thing that has the most plugins. So what I'll say, if you're looking to start an e-com brand, Shopify is just the easiest. Okay. It may not look the sexiest, but it's definitely the platform that has opened their arms up to everyone. Everyone develops for it. There's always a plugin for something. You want to have a discount code generator, you can just get an app for it in Shopify. You don't need to spend it'll just save thousands of dollars in development costs. We still have to pay a developer now because our site is customized to the point where we have to develop our own stuff within Shopify, but there's still no limits to. And so why we moved to Shopify Plus, I'll cover that off, is that now we're at a stage where we're trying to be very granular with our marketing, and we're doing some pretty tricky things with just automation on our website. So that's why we had to take the next step up to be able to do that in an easier way and remove the amount of plugins we use, because we probably have 20 apps plugged into it. Yeah, it's just like a nightmare.
So are you Shopify as well?
Yes, we are also on Shopify. We have been since day one for similar reasons to Laz. It's just the easiest. And depending on how much budget you have, or if you don't, depending on if you have a programming background or an IT background, it's very user-friendly. I had absolutely no IT background or programming background, and when I very first started, ours is customized now too, so we do have a programmer for that. But for those early years, I did everything myself. I had a graphic designer that would make some beautiful web banners for me, and there's a stack of templates that you can purchase for relatively low cost, and there's a lot of great apps or plugins that you can use. Very user-friendly and quite inexpensive to get started.
Yep.
I think the challenge I've had with Shopify, so I'm going to be the contrarian on this one. I get, and we've got multiple clients. I've got clients on Shopify, I've got clients on WordPress, I've got clients on Magento. And I basically, I bundle them into, there's a use case for all three of those. And I think Shopify works best for smaller to medium-sized businesses that are scaling, because you can jump from Shopify to Shopify Plus, and for businesses that are very visual. So, you guys, we've got New Farm Confectionery as one of our clients. They just do beautiful confectionery, beautiful chocolate. It's a very visual platform. We've tried building a Shopify website for a technical business, a air monitoring business that sells UV machines and blah blah blah. It just doesn't work, because even though because for a start they're not selling things online, they're waiting for people to request a quote. So instead of buy now, that has turned into a request a quote button. But they also have a lot of technical PDFs, a lot of technical information. It just doesn't work. So suffice to say, we've gone, or we are going to take it away and put that into WooCommerce, WordPress and WooCommerce. The WordPress and WooCommerce, I still feel, and I know what you guys have said, but I still feel that Shopify lacks some customizability. Is that the right word? Anyway, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It lacks, it still has some constraints because it is a fixed platform. Yeah. So
I'd agree with that. I'll just say, if you're selling online,
definitely
Shopify is the way to go.
And starting out.
Yeah. Because obviously WordPress, to get a WordPress site looking even as clean as a Shopify template, you have to spend quite a bit of time. Yeah. So the problem is it's really customizable. It's actually, you can end up making it look like Microsoft Paint.
The other challenge I've seen is that WordPress, whilst it does have considerable development time and costs up front, the ongoing costs are much slower than the Shopify costs. Because Shopify is taking its little clip as
That's
every
true.
transaction goes through.
Yeah.
And I've never actually done the like for like comparison, you know, to understand over the lifetime or 3 or 4 years of a Shopify versus WordPress, which one's the most expensive. But I can't help thinking that when it all comes out in the wash, there's not going to be a lot of difference between them.
You know, the analogy I'll use is Apple versus, you know, other products.
Yeah.
You pay a premium for Apple, but you don't, and it's not as flexible as other things, you know.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's just something that's rock solid that
Yep.
works,
Yep.
and everything plugs into it, and you know you've
know
got like
what you're
a
getting.
you've got an assurance that my AirPods are going to work with my whatever.
Yeah.
So you're kind of buying into an ecosystem that removes the complexity
Yeah.
and just gives you a product, you know, that
Yeah.
someone
I
can
would
use. So
agree.
yeah.
I tell you a struggle with Shopify. I'm not going to sit here and bag Shopify because you're right. It is a great platform. I want everyone here and everyone who watches this video to understand, to do the due diligence about what their business is and what they're going to
100%.
need moving forward.
Yeah.
One of the other
absolutely.
challenges I've had with Shopify is things like, we're having the challenge at the moment where we're trying to do a loyalty point system, but we're trying to do a loyalty point system over both physical retail and online, so that somebody who's swiping their credit card in a retail store is allowed to add their points and then use them online. And vice versa. That's proving a challenge. And it's been a challenge to find a system that works with the till system and works with the online system and is independent enough. And these are the little things that people
That's
don't think
surprising.
about, right? Is that if one system sends an email and I unsubscribe, and a loyalty system sends a different email when I've unsubscribed to this system, you are technically breaking the law. So if somebody unsubscribes in the store and says, I don't want any emails from you anymore, and the worker who might be earning, you know, minimum wage and taps the information in, that has to proliferate through an entire system to make sure that person's removed off an email.
So what I would say to that is that I agree, but also that's down to the rewards. So say you're trying to have a rewards platform.
Yes.
It's on you to have that conversation with the rewards platform provider as well and say, this is my ecosystem. You know, I'm running Shopify, I'm doing this and that. Do you have integrations already? Where is that at? Because we have a loyalty program, so we don't need to do rewards in person because you don't have a physical presence. We stock to boutiques. But, you know, say with our email marketing, all of our integrations, they have to send, you know, our loyalty program sends emails because it'll send a reminder to say, you know, you've got X amount of points left. This is when they expire, but it all sends through our email marketing platform,
Which is
Klaviyo.
Klaviyo. Okay.
So we chose that because we're an e-com brand and Klaviyo is built for e-commerce and it's just a bit more flexible. But everything that we do, so our rewards, our reviews platform as well. So we've set it all up so that even though they all send emails differently, they all go through the one system. So then, you know, you're not getting differential emails, the design's all the same. So
And it's little things like that you probably don't need to worry about day one, but you know,
well, you need
6
to have
months,
that in
12
mind
months in,
when you're, you know, you want
Yeah.
to start an online business. These are things that are going to pop up. And if you
That's
don't
right.
have an answer for it before you do it all,
Yeah.
it's actually a lot harder to fix it
And
retrospectively.
undo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy, what do you use for emails and any automation and things like that?
We actually still use Mailchimp
Okay.
at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
I have been speaking with Klaviyo. I do really love the product. It is very expensive compared to Mailchimp.
We found it the same. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh,
We
okay,
can
we'll
chat about
talk.
that offline.
So I am still in the process of just sort of weighing. I do really like it. There's hands down, it's built for e-commerce. It integrates really well with Shopify. But for us, with the size of our email list, it is a very big jump for us. So I have to be sure that the time is right and that it's going to pay off if we do make that extra investment.
My business partner Matt swears about Drip. We use Drip with a couple of other clients as well.
I did look at Drip as well.
And that's one of those ones where I say, if you are thinking of picking a system, go and have a look at 2 or 3 different systems and work out what's best for you. But I would also say, they've all kind of morphed into doing the same thing as each other. There's not a massive amount of difference in these systems. It's about how they're laid out and the user
And the
experience.
reporting is really powerful with
Yeah.
Klaviyo. I'm not sure about Drip. I know they have their
outside of my skill
automations,
set.
but
I'll leave that one to Matt. He's that area. I just wanted to touch on, and I know neither of you have a website built, but I just wanted to touch on Magento again for the benefits of these guys, because I actually manage a couple of e-commerce stores built on Magento, and I've built stores on Magento. And I would probably say to you 5-6 years ago, if you said the word Magento to me, I would have run out of the room or just shrieked and just, because Magento had Magento seems ridiculously complicated when you start dealing with it, right? And it is bloody expensive, right?
It's owned by Adobe, isn't it?
It's yes, I think it is now.
Yep.
Yes. Where I think Magento excels is if you are building multi-country platforms with different SKU codes, different pricing, different languages, and you want to run it all from a single system. And you want somebody to worry about the hosting so for example, the one that I use is we have an insulation client who has an online insulation store in New Zealand and has an online insulation store in Japan. They are essentially both the same website. You look at them and they look completely different, right? But it's essentially all being driven by the same website and the same back end. So all the stock's in there, all the different languages are in there, the transactions all occur through the same system. The Japanese version of the site is hosted on a Japanese server, the Kiwi version of the site is hosted in New Zealand. And there will eventually be an Australian one that's hosted, that's again, same platform. This is where Magento excels because they can just cookie cutter a website for a particular region and it works. It's incredibly fast, but you are paying for that. It's the sort of system where if you're expecting 1,000 transactions a day, that's where it really excels.
Yeah. The one thing you just triggered something. The one thing to think about as well, depending where you're at, is inventory management as well. So we're talking about just platforms to host your website on, but you may get to a certain size and you need to think about what your source of truth for your inventory is. So, if you've got a business plan and you want to be selling a multitude of different things, you don't want to get to a point where you're managing your inventories through something like Shopify and it can't handle it. So very early on, we committed to running our own inventory management system. So that is the source of truth for our stock. So if we wanted to move to Magento, if we wanted to whatever, it's not locked into a particular platform, and there's a lot more power with that. So that we have wholesale and retail, so we sell direct to consumer as well as business to business. So for us, we can segregate our stock. We can have our stock available for our online store, but segregate that and keep it away from that. So we've got wholesale stock levels, and if we sell in New Zealand, we have to have local 3PL there, so that we have stock in New Zealand, then we can keep a track of that separately and do stock takes and different things. So depending how big you want to go, you need to keep that in mind when you're looking at what platform you want to use and that kind of thing. I think that's.
How do you handle stock, Kathy?
We still use Shopify.
Okay.
Yeah, at the moment.
And you found that works for you?
I have found that it works okay, but having said that, now that we have started to wholesale our own label as well, it is a little bit trickier because it doesn't separate the stock. It's just, this is just stock, and it's up to you to either, take stock offline physically for wholesale, which can get messy because if, orders maybe get cancelled or it's not taken offline. It creates problems. You might go to fulfill something that you thought had been taken offline. It hasn't been. Now it's been sold.
What system are you using?
We use Sin 7, which is a kind of small.
That's a New Zealand brand as well.
New Zealand, yeah. I think they were from UK originally, but we had that same problem because we've been on the Iconic as well. Yeah, so we've got a lot of integrations. We don't just sell direct to consumer. So we've got wholesale, our own website. We're integrated with the Iconic, so they have an integration as well. So you can imagine stock, we live or die by our stock because we're an e-commerce company. So if we don't keep a good track on our stock levels, we'll oversell, we'll have angry customers because they've placed orders on product that's not available, massive overhead in our customer care team. So it's like a self-perpetuating, disaster. So for us, it was very important to get that right from the first day, purely because of the amount of channels we sell through, more so than,
Let's just talk about the channels really quickly before we move on to the marketing side of things, which we'll sort of close out with today. Laz, you've been selling through other channels for a long time, since probably day one, haven't you?
Yeah. We hit the ground using wholesale and retail. So,
Kathy, you're starting that journey. Where are you at with that? Where's the Pure Dash label going to at the moment, aside from the online?
So we actually have a dedicated sales manager for our wholesale. So that's just beginning. So we have about 10 stores at the moment.
Awesome.
We have a couple in Europe, which is fantastic because it's not so easy. I'm not sure about you, Laz, but we don't find it too easy to ship, to our customers directly. So it's much better for us to be able to, ship a whole lot of wholesale over, and then that becomes their retail stock. About half a dozen in Australia. We have a couple in New Zealand and a couple in the US.
And for everybody's benefit here, how did you find them? Was it just simply a sales manager knocking on the door?
Believe it or not, what actually started, because it actually hadn't entered my mind to offer wholesale, because essentially, we are a reseller of brands ourselves. So it really was just going to be our own vertical line. But during COVID, because stock got so tight and we had a couple of big well-known brands actually that decided to pull out of wholesale overnight.
Right.
So that actually left quite a big gap in a lot of businesses like ours. So one of our competitors based in WA actually reached out. They'd seen our own Pure Dash label online, and she said, hey, I really love, it was our Midnight Leopard range that we'd just released, and she said, would you consider wholesaling it to us? And I said, sure.
Yeah, why not?
And then I thought, hey, is there any reason why we can't wholesale? In my own mind, I thought we couldn't, but I thought, well, maybe
Did
we
you,
can.
like in your own mind, you were thinking, I'm always going to be in e-commerce and I'm never going to go down
Well,
that
I
bricks
just
and mortar?
thought they wouldn't, we're a competitor at the end of the day, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. We all have our own individual customer base. Their customer base is very different to ours. Yeah. So, I just sort of ran with it. And
Laz, you've got, I think you've got hundreds of retailers, haven't you? And you have, but also, and again, the interesting thing, I remember you saying to me why you weren't in Myer or DJ's.
So we've said
talk about your wholesale customer profile, and then talk about why you're not in.
Yeah, so we only stock to boutiques. We kind of being a small business ourselves, we kind of want to champion small business. So
really
for us, we thought, because we're more of a boutique label anyway, we just decided to approach boutiques and kind of help them out. So if our label has a following, then obviously we're helping them by giving them a label that they can stock that will sell. So at the moment, I don't know, I've lost track. At some point it was around 220 stockists in Australia, but they're all boutiques. So, we've had Myer and those kind of people approach us, but we've said no purely because not only would that cannibalise the local boutiques, because there's a Myer everywhere and there's a DJs everywhere, so all of a sudden their trade will be diminished. We lose control of our brand as well if we stock with Myer. You can walk up hope Myer doesn't watch this. You walk up there and it just feels like a graveyard. You walk into a big retailer, there's nothing going on, and boutiques, they put a little love in it. You go into a boutique store, the owner is proud, they're really passionate about the labels, they generally curate themselves, exactly like you, right? They're passionate about the labels, so we know that there's like skin in the game for them. Whereas Myer, it's just like a graveyard for stock that they buy. I did the numbers and our revenue would double, but our overheads would increase, and it'd kind of be a level exercise.
I think the other thing that was interesting when you said to me is all of a sudden there's labelling requirements and security tag requirements and all those kind of things for Myer and DJs that you don't have with the other boutiques.
Yeah. So for us, it was a no-brainer. I like the fact that we have these boutiques that it's like an ecosystem. And during COVID, I'll be frank, we were faced with that thing. Like, do we say to our wholesalers, no, you can't have the stock? Or a lot of them were ringing us and saying, it was coming up to winter, which is one of our biggest seasons. So we had pre-orders. So it would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of pre-orders, and we had the stock sitting there, and we had stores saying, we can't afford to pay for this stock, can you hold it? So you can imagine the craziness of, technically we could say to them, look, you signed a document saying that you were going to take the stock, but we had to make a decision going, well, is it more important to burn bridges and protect ourselves, or is it more important to try and ride the wave and see what we could? And luckily, we were able to navigate it, and COVID actually pushed e-commerce up and not down. So we were able to work with those stores, and it all turned out all right. But I think it's important to have a relationship there.
Absolutely.
Because that's what makes business work. You can talk about all these moving parts and Shopify versus whatever, but I think at the end of the day, the reason we grew so quickly is because we were working with boutiques that were helping to show our labels to their local customers, and we try and treat that relationship very, very carefully and keep that as a priority. So I don't know, I probably got really off track. But
No, that's fine. Look, I want to touch, there's a couple of more things I want to touch on today. Firstly is the marketing, because you build a website, you go and do all your sourcing, you get all your products, you fix your pricing, etc., etc. But if you open the door and nobody turns up, all of it's going to be for completely wasted. Kathy, what do you find is the best source of new customers for you?
Hands down, for new customers, social media.
Okay.
So for us at the moment, that's Instagram and Facebook. Actually, from day one, it's been mostly Instagram, but Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you've done that didn't work?
That's a good question. Plenty. No.
I mean, I guess in your field, things like influencers and stuff like, does that work? Does that help?
Yeah, and sorry, I probably should have elaborated a little bit on that. So with Facebook and Instagram, it is a lot of collaborations.
Okay.
That's actually where we really grew early on. It was a little bit different back in 2014. It probably wasn't so much of a business back then. It was a little bit easier, a little bit less expensive in terms of collaborating. There were a lot of really amazing influencers who would just be happy to share your brand and your products just to have the clothing sent to them. It's not quite that easy anymore, and we're definitely... I'm probably saying it nicely.
Very eloquently put.
And so we are a lot more selective. I mean, it's still very valuable form of marketing. You just have to be a little bit more thoughtful, and we certainly are a lot more selective with who we do collaborate with now.
What about you, Laz? Same sort of thing?
Yeah, we grew our following off social because I was a marketing manager when we started, so I knew social really well from day one. The money we didn't put into stock, I think I started spending about at least $2,000 a month on marketing straight away and on Facebook and Instagram. So I just knew that was really important because being from a sales and marketing background, you don't have revenue coming in the door, you quickly die to the sword. So I particularly was very careful about that. I'd say it's changing now. Social media is still the easiest way to reach your potential customers, but with Apple changing iOS 14.
Yes.
So right now there's a lot of stuff happening where you're not going to get the same granularity of customer data you were seeing before. You can't market based on interest. A lot of people can just opt out to marketing things. So,
there's a lot of talk that iOS 14 is going to kill Facebook.
It's not going to kill Facebook. They've already pivoted a little bit, and it's just the way. You're just not going to get as clear a picture of how much your customers are spending. You can still kind of put a piece together looking at Google Analytics and different things. But what I would say to that is that the whole marketing piece at the moment, right now, I'm changing our strategy completely. Like, we have been, fashion is very aesthetic. It's very, like, look at this, it's pretty, especially with women. They just love aesthetics. They love it. They'll buy it. But I think now, I've been looking at the trends, and companies like Gymshark, which is pretty prevalent to you, they don't market based on product, they market based on value. So what I'm seeing a big trend towards is, the rise of the ethical consumer, and what people subconsciously do, they buy based on their own values and prejudices. So you look at a brand, and what makes you choose to shop with a brand is generally you have this thing about the values they have and you have an affinity with that. So a lot of our marketing spend now will be less about marketing our product and we'll be doing more campaigns around marketing our values. So just sharing with people who we are and also sharing about causes we support. So we support women's community shelters, which is a charity. So our marketing, one of our campaigns is actually to do a campaign on them, nothing to do with us. It's not even branded to us. But all we're doing is using our platform to share our values to our customers. And, you know, if you're putting the right values out there, people will align with those and they'll shop with you. So it's kind of, there is a paradigm shift, I think, going on.
Yeah, I
Do
agree.
you see that as well, Kathy?
Absolutely, yeah. I think consumers are becoming a lot more conscious about the choices that they make. There's obviously a lot more awareness just in terms of sustainability, you know, where clothes come from, what they're made from, who they're made by.
Yep.
Definitely a big shift, yeah.
Okay.
Which is good. It's a good thing.
Some 3 quick fire questions to finish us off. Both of you mentioned investing cash right at the start. I'm not going to ask you how much you put in. How important is it for anyone who wants to go and build something or start something to have access to cash?
Well, you know,
Shall I go first?
you go first.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
it's a product-based business, so unfortunately, it's you need to have some sort of capital, whether it's your own or, you know, if you can maybe entice some family members or, you know, find investors. You need cash. It's a product-based business. So
I did a coaching session yesterday for the Queensland government, and a lady who'd created underpants for men with low sperm counts. So the underpant was specifically designed to keep certain parts of a male anatomy at a much lower temperature. I don't know whether
I think that'd be handy in general, wouldn't it?
I didn't actually get to see any, but I got the feeling that you were putting ice packs in there or something. Anyway, and these underpants...
I'll grab the name of that later.
These underpants were retailing for $60 each. I mean, there was a medical side for them, you know. The idea was to sell them through fertility clinics and doctors and those kind of things. And obviously, as a man, I said to her, you know, most men are going to need 7 of them because, you know, we ain't washing them ourselves, and you know, and that kind of thing. We're going to need one for every day of the week. So all of a sudden, 60 times 7, you need to do a week pack for $399 or whatever. The point was the landing price for her was about $20. So the challenge we'd said to her straight away is that if you just get that much demand, you're screwed from a cash perspective, because she didn't have a block of cash to sit there and go, I'm going to go and need to buy these underpants up front. I can't wait until I've sold them before I can actually buy them. It doesn't work like that. So, you know, that was obviously a challenge for you guys at the start. You put the mortgage deposit in there.
Oh yeah, oh that's nuts. I mean, people are like, well, you know, the great Australian dream is to buy a house. So, but what people don't realise is the return on a house is actually pretty rubbish. And this day and age, our housing market is, you know, it's very highly inflated, and it, you know, especially with COVID hitting, you'll probably see a bit of an adjustment. But even if they stay stagnant, you'll see between 2 to 5% return on a house, you know, per annum if on average. We started a business, and yes, it's a risk. So I'd say that a business is always going to be a risk, and the risk never goes away. You never get to a point, you know, we're 3 years down the track and we're still running the same gauntlet, just at a much bigger scale. So you could do it with $1. It's just going to take a lot longer than if you have $70,000 you can put towards stock and have a bit of margin in there. But at the same time, the potential return on that, if you get the ingredients right, is a lot higher. So, you know, we've got our own house now, and, you know, it's just like the chicken or the egg scenario. But I think you can make it work. I read Shoe Dog, you know, Phil Knight's story. And it's crazy.
I recommend that book. It's, you know,
mate, that is,
Shoe Dog.
Massive risks. You know, he'd just commit to buying millions of dollars worth of stock, no money, get it shipped over to the US, and hopefully he sold the product. And, you know, like that, it just makes, mate, so reckless. But, you know, he owns one of the biggest companies in the world.
So, I'd recommend that. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the story of Nike. It is a great read because he is a great writer, and a lot of those corporate stories are a bit clunky and a bit kind of, you know, but he writes really well and it is a great story. The other one that's I enjoyed but got incredibly frustrated by the end of was Jodie, I can't remember her surname, but Shoes of Prey story. And how that all went pear-shaped.
Yeah.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so
The
was
Birds of Prey one?
Shoes of Prey.
Oh, Shoes of Prey, yes.
Yeah, that was
I
a
didn't
that was a
know
great
that-
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago she
Oh,
stopped,
what a shame.
and I couldn't really understand why she'd stopped. But anyway, but that's another. It is a good book. It's a good book to read. I think it's called Reboot, if I remember rightly. 2 more questions. Last one: measurement. Obviously, you guys measure things like turnover and profit and stuff like that. What are the numbers that you look at on a daily basis? Or are there any numbers that you look at on a daily basis?
Sales number 1 for
Okay.
me, because it's
Does
just
matter.
in your face.
Yeah.
But then, sales.
See, I've got a client.
I mean, on a daily basis, but obviously there's lots of important things to be looking at, like your profit margin, how much stock you're holding. Stock's actually probably the next thing that I look at on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So where we're sitting in terms of, things that are moving really fast. Do we have enough of it? Or if not, do we have more coming? Things that are moving a bit slow, what's our strategy around that?
Would either of you know your e-commerce conversion rate on your website?
Yep.
Yeah,
Off the top of your head?
Yep.
Would you be able to tell us?
Yeah, we said about 3%.
3%.
It's high.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, we sit a little bit over the industry average, which is at about 2%
Okay.
at the moment, on average, since we started. So
And I've been working with e-commerce, an e-commerce brand that we started with in December, and they're tracking about 1.8%. So we're kind of going, look, there's room for improvement here. Any
Three's
tips from you?
amazing.
Any tips from you guys in improving that e-commerce rate? So just for everyone's benefit, the e-commerce conversion rate is the rate at which people come to the website and make a purchase. So for example, if 100 people come to Laz's website, he knows that 3 of them will actually make a purchase. So that 3% is really good. The industry average is about 2%.
it's about 2.
It's
a bit lower.
Yeah,
A little bit lower.
1.8 or something.
Okay, 1.8, right, that's great.
to
So the
know.
industry average, it could be 1 point, again, it depends fashion and
Depends on your
the
industry,
product
but
and
for
all those
fashion,
kind of things.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Any tips on improving that?
It's kind of all related. So I guess it's all about the experience. So, everything's kind of related. So what we kind of realized is that we have to create an experience where a customer wants to shop with us and so returning customer rate's really important.
Yeah.
But the main thing we look at now is lifetime value of the customer. So that's over a period, whether it's 90 days, how much that customer spends with us. Because lifetime value comes into how many times they purchase, the value of that. So we look at that because it's dangerous to look at one particular thing. So
Yeah,
even
that's
revenue
right.
or different things, those things can go up and down. But lifetime value is kind of a thing that you can actually kind of measure, and as long as that's going up, you're on the right path. And for us as a product business, I keep an eye on inventory days. Like, we don't want inventory sitting there for more than 30 days because that's cash that's sitting burning, and cash flow is really important for a product company, and our cash conversion cycle. So if you have to pay suppliers, you get money back, all that kind of thing. Once again, going to Maya, they have a 90-day payment term. So you're giving them product and you're covering the value of that stock for
Crazy.
90 days plus.
And that's a very frustrating thing that they, in their media, Maya will talk about, the supporting the local, but then their payment plan is 90 days, and you just go, how's this helping anybody?
No,
long.
I mean, technically, if you're a small business today, you shouldn't really have a reason to stock with Maya or someone like that, because back in the day, that was how you got eyes on your product. But
That's
with
right,
social media,
yeah.
you can forge your own path. So they kind of have this carrot. We've got this massive consumer base, and the problem is they erode all your margins with all their, imposts that they cause your business. So,
So Kathy, how many times, again, feel free not to answer this, but how many times would your customers be coming back and making a purchase from you over their life cycle? And
Ooh, that's a good question, actually. I don't know that one off the top of my head.
What about you, Laz? Do you know yours?
I think our return customer rate's about 30 to 40%.
Yeah,
I
our
think.
rate sits at about 40. It's
Right.
quite high, but
Okay.
I couldn't say in a number,
wouldn't
like on a
know,
number basis. Yeah.
Okay. Because
Lots,
again, from
hopefully.
everybody's benefit, it's all, normally you've got to assume that the first purchase isn't going, the job isn't that the first purchase is the only purchase. What you guys want is people to come in, make one purchase, and then keep coming back and making more purchases and more purchases and more purchases.
Yep.
So then your cost of acquisition, and I think you and I have had this conversation because I've actually used that conversation many times before, is to say, not naming your brand, I just want to stress that, I haven't, nobody knows who it was that I was talking about. But I think, and these were rough as guts numbers, that there was this initial transaction which was around about $100, which is bizarre because of all of the businesses that we work with in e-commerce. $100 seems to be a benchmark about what people are willing to spend online. A lot of the average sales seems to be around $100.
Our average order value is about $150.
Okay,
Is yours
No, ours is lower. Ours is maybe 120 or something.
Okay.
Oh, that's still good though. Yeah.
So anyway, we sort of discussed how if your first sale is, let's say, $100, $150, but your cost of acquisition is $40, that may seem exceedingly expensive. But if that person that spent $150 comes back and buys 4 more times from you, without needing any more marketing other than email marketing, your actual cost of acquisition for $40, your cost of acquisition for a $600 customer lifetime value is actually only $40. At which point it becomes a little bit more profitable. Most people at that point would say, "Here's my credit card. Let's get as many customers as we can."
Yeah, they already know and trust you.
Yeah.
And, yep.
Yeah. Okay, last question, the sort of elephant in the retail room, Amazon. I know you and I have had this conversation. I've not had this conversation with you. And I'm not talking about Amazon Australia because that's tiny, that's a mouse in comparison to Amazon US. So Amazon US, for everyone's benefit, there are more Prime members in Amazon US than there are people in Australia. So Amazon Prime members in the US get next day delivery. If you're on Amazon Prime, someone can order on a Tuesday, you get the product on a Wednesday. So that's why it's such an elephant in the room, is that if you can get a product onto Amazon and you can get it doing well in America, we actually have a client, we're going to do another event around them, who actually have built an entire business out of just Amazon US. Fascinating story. Never thought, is that something that you think about in the future? No?
For us, because we're building a brand, we've had eBay, we've had everyone and their pet pigeons approach us to say, "Oh, we want to stock you," and even not competitors, but similar brands that have a massive presence in the US that it'd be great to siphon their audience to us.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we always have to make a decision, and this is only for us, I can only speak on our behalf, that we have to protect our brand, and a lot of that time is who you're associated with, what platforms you sell on. If we were to sell on eBay, it would just ruin the whole, the proposal that we give to our customers. There's a particular way that we market ourselves. So, I don't know. I think it depends on your motivations. If you want to get rich quick, find something cheap that you can sell on Amazon for a margin and just smash it.
Yeah.
Like that's probably not what I would be willing to talk about. I'm more from the thing of, I'm passionate about something. I want to start a business. I want to work for myself. Not get rich quick. And you know that I have a personal aversion. Kathy doesn't know the story, but I have a real
I know a little bit about
issue with people that want to sell e-com courses and be like, "I'll teach you to get rich quick and all this stuff."
Yeah,
and it's like, well, it's possible, but it's not very
it's
long
not
term.
Sustainable.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And you 1% of people may get it lucky, but the rest of the time they'll spend their money on courses and doing nothing with their lives and still
Making
working
the
full time.
person rich that's selling the courses.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, right. Well, park that one there. Kathy, Amazon.
Yeah, I tend to agree
Okay.
with Laz. Yeah, we've obviously been approached by both of them, and it's just not really something, it's not a road that we'll go down for similar reasons. We're all about building a brand and also having control over the brand and pricing, and also protecting, our wholesale customers that we now have as well. So we want to, foster really long-term partnerships with them, and we're not looking after them if we then go ahead and, start putting all of our stock on Amazon or eBay.
I'm going to be contrarian on this because an interesting story. So, we're the ones who keep talking about e-commerce and helping clients and all those kind of things. And Matt, my business partner, Matt, and I sort of decided 3 months ago we really ought to try and do it ourselves rather than just be the ones that are talking about it. So we actually have a client, and this is a potential, if somebody wants to go down this road. We have a client based in the UK who makes belts, and very high-end belts. So these belts are £100 upwards. He's got ones that are £300, £400 belts.
Do they put your pants on for you?
Well, you'd hope. You'd hope, but no, they don't. And I'd had this conversation about Amazon with him, and he'd said exactly the same as both of you. I don't want to devalue the brand by selling on Amazon. And when you look on Amazon, you know, you see a lot of belts on there for 20, 30 bucks, real leather, proper leather ones, $20, $30, US dollars, selling, you know, with 10,000 reviews. And there's a little cool Amazon software that you can buy so you know how many things are being sold and blah, 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 all those kind of things. And he said, I don't want to put my brand on Amazon. But he said to me, but if you wanted to create another brand, I can still use my manufacturing facilities, produce a lower quality product that will still be high quality because I don't do low quality products. So from his perspective, lower quality doesn't mean low quality. And I think we can retail these on Amazon US for 50, 60 US dollars. Are you interested in doing that? And we've gone, fantastic. We know they're not. We also know they're not manufactured in China, which was an attractive proposition for us. They're actually manufactured in Spain. So we were going, right, a Spanish manufactured belt selling into an American market, which has a massive Hispanic, population. This sounds like a good idea. So we're right at the start of that journey. We're actually going to make 100 test items, stick them in you mentioned third-party logistics, which is 3PL, which I know you said as
Sorry.
No, I know.
Start using acronyms.
Some people, 3PL, for anybody who doesn't understand, is third-party logistics, which means that you're putting it in someone else's warehouse and then they're going to shift it out for you. So Amazon have their own their own logistics, but there's also other companies that do the logistics outside of Amazon. Gets a bit complicated in some. So we're going to give that a go. And I was like, I completely understand about not devaluing the brand, but I think for premium brands, there is an opportunity to go, we've actually got the manufacturing process, we've got designers, we can still produce things and use Amazon as a potential distribution hub. But again, if it's not about making a huge amount of money or, you know, massive profit, that sort of thing, again, that may not fit within the brand. And of course, it's a distraction to your business. So it's going to be an interesting journey for us. We were like, let's give it a go, because we really want to learn about that Amazon thing. So
I admire the fact that you're doing it, because a lot of people, and this is probably a good thing for you, you go to get marketing advice from someone, a lot of the time it's just anecdotal. And, you know, it's just people that love social media. They've got no actual skin in the game. They've got no business experience. You know, like the reason I've been able to navigate being an owner and a founder is because I had to deal with the C-level suite. I was trying to sell to C-level people, and you know, I learned about how business works. And in finance, I was working with profit and loss and balance sheets, and I have a good understanding of how business works in a general sense. So you know, I can have that conversations, and now I can talk about marketing from a place of experience, because we've spent our own money and we've seen the results and we have a fair idea. But that's the other problem, you know, like usually agencies come and they go, I get these emails every day. We can increase your ROAS on Facebook by 20 times and you'll be selling $500 million. And I'll be like, cool, sign me up. But they have no idea, you know, so I don't know why I said that, but yeah, anyway.
Look, that's pretty much it from my questions. I want to open it up to the floor. If you have some questions and you want to make them public, by all means put your hand up, and what I'll repeat them just for the benefit of the camera picking, the microphone picking it up. If you don't want to, we will hang around for 10, 15 minutes afterwards and we can have a one-on-one chat. So is there anyone that's got sort of any burning questions that they want to ask in front of everybody else? Go for it.
You made a comment with regard to the changing direction within social media, moving from being pictorial, visual to values. Do you find that to be would that be a statement across all products or just within fashion?
Yeah, so I'll just repeat the question. So asking about where I see the shift going in social media advertising, I'd say that was just a general commentary around marketing in general. I think the age of the influencer and that kind of thing, the problem with social media is it has proliferated fake people. You have people that have built their businesses now on promoting other businesses, and so it's very hard to cut through who actually genuinely likes a product, because you've got these people saying, this is amazing, but they're all getting it for free. You know, I know a handful of influencers that had their whole weddings paid for and sponsored and different things because people are just trying to get that product in front of people. So social media doesn't have the same cut through as it used to because no one believes what it is. And there's things I see going viral. I showed our team a Gymshark video because Gymshark has, our accountant did a teardown of Gymshark, their profitability, all this kind of thing. They're a really profitable, really strong company that are worth more than £1 billion now. And they only started 7 years ago. So that they're obviously a unicorn, but if you dissect their marketing, at the core of their marketing, it's all about building a community around. It's not about a product. They're saying, we're Gymshark and we're facilitating health. So when I look at our own marketing strategy, I'm probably giving away everything that, we're doing, but I have to look at it and go, okay, what are we doing? We're not selling women's clothing. We're selling our values. So, the reason we make the clothes is because we believe in empowering women through fashion. How does that look? What does that look like in a conversation? So the phrasing I'm using with our marketing guys is like, we want to have a dialogue, not a monologue. So social media, you end up blasting stuff at people all the time. Whereas the reason you used to shop with people is you go into a store, you have a good chat, you get this affinity with the person because they know what they're talking about. So I think the challenge now is for brands, because it's so easy to start a business now, it's how do we create this thing where it's personalized and you can still reach a customer because you can get to the point of automating everything and they don't talk to a real person anymore. So for us, that's the challenge I'm going through.
And longevity as well. It's, because you don't want to create something that's on trend for 6 months. You want to create something that's on trend for 6 years, 10 years, 12 years, and eventually potentially sell it and move on or whatever it is after that. Anything to add from that, Kathy?
I liked what Laz said about, really personalising. That's something that we do with all of our interactions. So I think it's very easy, to set up a lot of automations these days, but it actually, at least for us, we found it takes a lot of the joy out of, actually interacting with our customers. So we'll still personalise all of our emails. We respond to, messages, DMs. When people stop by our social media and, might interact with us there. We're always really mindful, to comment back to everybody and interact with them. Yeah.
Any other questions out there?
How much percentage of your sales would you all spend on marketing at this time and vis-a-vis when you started off?
As a rule, you're supposed to not spend more than 10% of your revenue. And I think that's a good rule to stick by. If your acquisition costs are more than 10%, you're running a dangerous game where you're spending more than what, you need to have margin for other things. So we try and keep that. I think we're sitting about 9%, or we sit around that 10% mark. So, and that should scale. So our Facebook marketing spend now is very scary, but it's in relation to our revenue.
With that 10%,
And does Facebook marketing still work? Is it still...
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the changes to iOS 14 will impact that, and I don't know what.
Some of those have already started, I think, haven't they? I already got the prompt.
Yeah. So that right now it's probably happening, and we won't know the actual impact of that for a little while. But that may change where we've got different channels. We market with Google, we market with Facebook and Instagram. So that may change the way that we do it, but that's just an ongoing thing. And I think you should always commit to at least around that 10%, because you need to be committing to further growth and further revenue and continuing acquisition.
And before Kathy asked, and what I would say on that, when people say to me, how much should I spend on marketing? I normally give the 5 to 10% band as a, if you just want to maintain your business, 5%. If you want to grow your business, 10%. That's a really, really rough as guts number. But again, some of the bigger brands around the world spend 13, 14%. Again, it depends on profit margins. So, you might be selling, I know companies that make skin, we've had skincare clients. The profit margins are absolutely extraordinary in those kind of things. They're way, way, way in excess of what, fashion would be. So they could potentially afford to spend more, but they're in an incredibly much more cutthroat market, and getting the female market, because it was a female-oriented product, to switch skincare is often quite a challenge versus potentially trying on a jacket or a blouse or a different pair of leggings. That's sometimes a bit of an easier task. So 5% to 10% to me is is a good benchmark, but it really does depend on profit margin, industry, so on and so forth. What about yourself, Kathy?
We definitely sit around that 10% mark now. But when we started, we were investing a lot into, a lot more than 10% into our marketing. We had pretty, aggressive goals for what I wanted to reach in terms of, building our customer base. I could see an opportunity, so I really wanted to, take hold of it as quick as I could. Yeah, I'm not sure if that helps you, but it was a lot more
the
than
interesting
10%.
thing is when you start looking at marketing budgets is what do you define as marketing, and depending on which business you're in.
Yes, that's
because
a good point.
Facebook advertising is marketing, Google is marketing, producing
Even doing content shoots for
is
social media.
absolutely, that's all marketing.
Yeah.
This for me, standing here, is marketing. It's hard for me to define that, and it certainly doesn't appear on my profit and loss line as a Simon spent 3 hours doing a talk at Brisbane Business Hub. That doesn't have a numerical value associated with it, couldn't appear in my marketing budget. So our marketing budget appears a lot lower because a lot of the marketing that we do is me. Cemoh, who works for me at the back there, does 2 days a week. He is technically a marketing resource because a lot of the stuff he does is marketing, but his salary appears in a different line. So sometimes you have to kind of get your head around what you see in Xero and go, hold on a second, what is marketing and what is the actual cost? Because sometimes it's like, certainly with startups and people new to e-commerce, a lot of that marketing could be your time.
And product, if you're doing collaborations.
Absolutely. We've actually just started, we had a promotion that we were running where we were discounting a particular product that we sell, particular service we sell, and we went, if it appears in the top line as a revenue item, we were actually discounting it down to 0, and we sell it, we can't keep track of it anywhere because it's a 0 liner in the revenue. So what we've done is then go, well, we actually need to put it in as a revenue item and technically send an invoice to the client, put a discount line in there, and that discount line then goes into a different line in Xero, so we can keep track of that. So 5%, 10% is a good benchmark, but also then think about what you actually define as marketing. It could be time, it could be a freebie, it could be product, it could be anything.
Yeah, realistically, it could be 50%. It just depends how that looks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other questions out there?
I have more.
No, go for it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So, and this one's to you, Simon. You've probably been mentoring a lot of companies, doing a lot of e-commerce. I am in a stage toward Laz was probably 6-7 years ago. I'm helping my wife set up her own business, but I'm in that dilemma whether do you need a website or can I use Facebook page, Facebook groups and marketplace just to sell the product? How important is it to have an online store on Shopify or WooCommerce or use a WordPress site? I'm from the IT background like yourself as well, but I'm not able to have that break even. We are making good money or kind of reasonable money online using Facebook Marketplace and pages, Facebook page and groups as well. But do I need to invest in a Shopify website? Do I need to pay that money?
I did a podcast with a couple of brothers, Anthony and Guy Napper, and they run a e-commerce store called Oz Hair and Beauty. Similar kind of vein to you, absolutely 2,000 different products. It's insane the volume of products there. And they came from a hair care background. So if you get a chance to have a look at it,
What's the name?
The website is Oz Hair and Beauty, spelled OZ.
Okay.
They both started, or Anthony started, because then Guy came along later on. Anthony started in eBay. So he was just selling wholly through eBay. And he was making decent money through eBay. Right? And he said at one point, he realized that for him to scale, for the business to be taken seriously, for suppliers to take him seriously, he needed a website. And that's when he got his brother on, who's the more technical minded of the pair of them. He built, I think, a Shopify website, a basic Shopify website to start with. They moved everything over from eBay into their own website. I think they carried on doing eBay for a bit as well. And they've just scaled massively. You know, they come from a background of hairdressers, and their father and mother owned salons all throughout Sydney. You know, so they naturally sort of took what the family was doing and took it online. My point to you would be, if you want to make this into a business that self-sustains you and your wife and your family, you will eventually need a website, and you'll need a platform that can show off your legitimacy, that people can trust and see that you are a proper business. That's not to say you're not a proper business selling through other third-party channels, but there will come a point when you go, revenue is going to dictate that we have to have a proper website here.
So a 2% conversion rate on e-commerce. I'm just thinking how successful can an e-commerce website be just purely by selling online? But you guys are doing wholesale and retail, and that does not involve anything to do with your website. That could be just somebody picking up.
But it does. It does. It's the brand. It doesn't matter who it is. Even if you're just wholesaling, so say you start a brand that's just selling other brands, you're still piggybacking off that other brand. So consumers want some level of legitimacy, they want some kind of background to the story. So it still comes back to the same commentary we had earlier about values and things like that. So
knowing who you
there's
are
a stigma about Facebook Marketplace and different things where it's like, it's just Johnny who's doing something out of his garage, and it all boils down to what your end goal is. So when we started the business, I wanted to, Rachel and I talked about it, and we're like, what do we want to do? Do we want to hire people? Do we want to, because that has its own inherent issues. Like, having staff is its own thing. So where do we want to get off the train? And if we never wanted to be more than a local retailer, I never would have spent the money on inventory management system, because that is a problem that you have as a global brand. So as an IT guy, you need to look at your end goal and then reverse engineer it from there. Yeah. So is a website a necessary step to, is it going to kind of pigeonhole me if I don't have a website, if this is my end goal? So, and spend the money up front to do that.
I had another client that I coached through the Queensland mentoring system who was making candles. This is a different candle one. Aromatherapy candles. That seems to be attracted by people making candles. And she'd built a business. She was doing $2,000 a month. It was a little side hustle, $2,000 a month selling candles through eBay. But she'd reached a point. She couldn't sell any more candles. She was selling as many candles as she possibly could through eBay. So she was going, right now I'm going to Shopify site. She built it herself. She started doing markets, and the interesting thing with markets, and I've had a few people who do this, they do markets and they have hundreds of people walk past their stall or look at something or go, this is great, but then they walk away. Now, if the market is the only place you can buy this product, the only chance you've got of selling it to them is when they come back next week or whatever. If you've got a website, you can sit there and say, look, here's a little discount card. Take this with you. If you don't want to buy my stuff today, that's great. Here's a card. We're online. You can buy everything that you see here on my website, 10% off for your first order. And then all of a sudden, the legitimacy grows, your brand grows, your traffic grows, those kind of things. You can't really put a website up and expect people to arrive. It doesn't happen like that. Kathy's got, how many people on Instagram have you got? Fans on Instagram have you got?
117,000.
17 or 70?
17.
17,000 people on Instagram. But you've built that over how many years?
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah. So that's why the traffic comes to the website. So that's why 2% is fine, because there's literally thousands of people coming to the website. So I think, to Laz's point, think about the end goal. If you want this to be a business that self-sustains you and your family, you've got to think about the steps that you're going to need to take to achieve that. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
We might take one more question and then we'll wrap up. Is there anybody else that's got a question? No, we won't take one more question then. So basically, let's just get a last comment from these guys. So your advice, if everyone in here walks out here and wants to start an e-commerce business, the one piece of advice for them.
God, what's
on the spot?
And Laz, try and make this tight, because I know you love to talk.
That is a really tough thing.
Maybe 2 sentences, Laz.
Oh man.
I'll go.
All right, Kathy, you go first.
Please save me.
If I had to give just one piece of advice that I wish somebody had given me when I started, it would have been to just have a plan of exactly what you want to do and put that on paper. Because I had a lot of ideas in my head, which is great, but until you actually put something on paper and get it out of your head, that's where you can really start, to mold an actual plan of how you're going to get there. And it doesn't matter, it'll probably change, 100 times, especially over, a 6-year period. But actually put down, where you are, where you want to get to, and then you can start to fill in those steps in between.
I'm going to add to that as my one comment, and then Les can have the last say, as no doubt he wants to. I'll add, because I was going to say have a plan. I think that to me is almost first piece of advice. The addition on top of that is have a plan to get out of it, right? And I say this to every person that I've mentored in the past 3 years. Have a plan to exit. Yeah. Even if you never exit and don't intend to exit, have a plan to exit, right? So are you going to sell this business? Are you just going to close it down and go away? Are you going to hand it over to somebody else, a son or a daughter or a family member? Are you going to build this that you can walk away and just become a chairman of the company and other people are going to run it? What is your exit plan? Because if you target that exit plan and build a plan to get to that point, all of a sudden that will make all these decisions for you. And the reason I say you have to have an exit plan is we all intrinsically in our lives have an exit plan. We are all going to die at some point, right? That is a reality. That is our exit plan. The worst thing we could possibly do is get to the end of our lives or get to whatever point and suddenly realize that what we spent 20, 30 years building is worthless. Because that is the last thing that you want to happen. And I coached, we did a strategic plan for a company last Friday with 3 very, very intelligent, smart senior people, all in their sort of late 50s, early 60s, who have just realized that their entire businesses that they've been building over the past 20 years is worthless. Because it's entirely dependent on them, the 3 of them. That's how the business keeps going. You know, they have all the connections, they have all the relationships, they are the ones with all the IP in their heads. And they've realized this and gone, in 5 years' time, if we want to retire and sell this, it's worth nothing. And that's what I would be saying to you, is that you all have that exit plan, whether you like it or not. You need to think about that. And think about, even if, as I say, you never decide to sell it, think about your business as an entity that you could possibly sell and build it with that in mind. So you need to think about profit margins, platforms, your staff, culture, brand, all those kind of things. And go, if someone comes along and wants to offer me $1 million, yeah, I'm taking it. I've again, sorry, digressing here, but I met with an air conditioning guy who'd run this air conditioning company for 35 years, and I said to him, "Do you want to sell this business?" I said, he was reaching retirement, and he goes, "No, I'll never sell it. It's like my 3rd child, and I've built this thing." And I said, "Well, how much do you think it's worth right now?" And he's looking at the profit, and he's going, "Well, you know, someone offered me $200,000 for this," and I'm like, $200,000 for something you've been building for 35 years would just kill me. And that's why he wanted to hand it over to his daughter. But his daughter was in the room, and you can see she really didn't want to run an air conditioning company. She wanted to go and do something else, you know. So he's 35 years, and it's this $200,000 company. And I'd said to him, when I said to him, "Do you want to sell it for 200,000?" He goes, No, I want to keep it. I want to hand it down. I said, "What if someone walked in here and offered you $2 million?" He went, "Fuck yes, I'd sell it." You know, so that loyalty for it being your 3rd child is only dependent on the value that you're prepared to sell it for. So go and build a business that could sell for $2 million, you know, and then sail around the world or drive around Australia in a combi or whatever you want to do. So anyway, that was, I know I said to you that you have to give one quick piece of advice, and I know mine wasn't. But what's your quick piece of advice?
Right, so that was good, because I'm going to be contrarian to you. I do agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
But so my wife is on that it's my child train, right? Yeah. But that's good, because the one piece of advice that always comes back to me is why you're doing it. And at the end of the day, if you don't treat it like a child, without all the weird sentimental attachment, you need to be so passionate about it, because at the end of the day, that's what Phil Knight did with Nike. It's all the successful businesses that I've ever seen have been driven by someone who actually cares about something, and there's substance behind it. Because when trends change, whenever stuff happens, it's always the people that have like a motivation behind the financial. There's something more to it that they see more success just on an ongoing basis. So yes, agree. Like you don't want to get to 60 and not be redundant from your own business and not be able to sell it. That's a very valid point. But I know since we started apparel, and I've never worked harder, but it's never felt less like work.
Agreed.
You know, like
Yeah.
some days I'm doing 15, 16 hours a day, and I'm
You're not
physically
counting.
no,
Yeah.
because it's
Wait till you have kids, Les.
yeah, but it's that you know switch, because I was getting paid great money doing what I was doing before, but it was never the same thing. So, and I'd say the aircon guy, it's probably a trade that he fell into,
Yes,
and he just
absolutely.
did for the rest of it. He
Yeah.
wasn't passionate about. I mean, I don't know how anyone can be passionate about aircon, but I mean, it keeps you cool in summer. That's great, but if you get what I'm saying, it's
Yeah.
like there's got to be something behind it.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say to you, your wife, there's a number in your wife's head. I
don't know, because I did have a
do you
conversation
know what?
with
When
her.
I meet her, I'm going to challenge her. I'm going to keep saying numbers, and eventually she'll go, yeah, right, take the business.
But the problem
She will,
is,
I guarantee.
yeah, the problem is she doesn't know, because it fulfills her so much to do design. If we were to sell the business, she would still want to do the same thing.
That's fine.
So we would still
fine.
do the
I
same
get
thing.
that.
We would
You'd
start
end up
another
just
company.
building it up.
Yeah,
So the problem is
Yeah.
then you have to go through the same issues of starting a company. So why not just
Yeah, but you might
keep
have
the same issues?
You might have
you've
$10
got?
million in the bank, and you wouldn't care. You know.
That's fine.
Anyway,
I guess it's one of those things where
yeah,
keep that in mind,
Yeah.
because if your only thing is to like start a business because you haven't got a better idea, you know, even a broken watch is right twice a day. Like everyone has great ideas, but to change something from a great idea to a lifetime business or something like that, or something of value, I think people romanticize that on social media, and you just get bombarded by that. But if you got to be good at your trade, you got to have something that's unique. You got to be really good. You got an artisan at something, and just go for it, and or have knowledge about something. And yeah, I'll stop there. But that's the
we're
point.
finished with the question from
Yeah.
down the front.
Quick question.
Yeah,
Are you not concerned about the number of belts that people will buy in a lifetime?
the amount of
Belts.
a belt. Again, if I was going to say that, if I managed to sell one belt to everybody on Amazon Prime in America, I'd be happy with that. You know, yes, you're right. People probably don't buy multiple belts. It would be great to buy from a fashion, because people buy that more repeatedly. But yeah, it's
such a big market.
Yeah, it was never. We were kind of doing this as a bit of an experiment to kind of understand the whole Amazon system, with the view that potentially we could do something else. There's a guy on Amazon that sells. I'll finish with this story. There's a guy on Amazon that sells multicolored unicorn towels for kids. Tie-dye, you know, the kind of tie-dye unicorns, that's what it's called. And if you go onto Amazon, they're $22, $23 US on Amazon, and they're on Prime and all that kind of thing. If you go in there and then you see that they've got 30,000, 40,000 ratings, and the system says that they're turning over just on unicorn something like $200,000 a month selling
On that one
tie-dye
product.
unicorn towels for kids. The one, you know, where you put them over the head and the kid looks like a unicorn, that kind of thing, right?
I'd buy one as an adult.
Yeah, it
if I
sounds
could.
cool.
Yeah.
If you go to Alibaba, AliExpress or whatever, and and search on there for tie-dye unicorn towels, the exact same picture is on AliExpress that's on the Amazon store. Okay, the guy's buying them on AliExpress for $6 or $7 US and selling them for $22 US. Now, obviously, he's losing margin on Amazon, he's losing margin on shipping, but he's selling $200,000 of these every month.
Do you think you could get another picture?
Well, you would think you would think.
for that.
What our Amazon people have told us is that eventually, when a product is at such a low level in terms of a cost to purchase, $6-7, it's probably the manufacturer doing it themselves rather than a third party. But you know, there's a lot of Chinese manufacturers doing that. So anyway, look, thank you very much for your time. We will hang around for 10-15 minutes if anybody's got any other questions, but really appreciate you coming along today. We will put this whole thing on the Cemoh YouTube channel, that hopefully by the end of the day, depending on how hard he works in the back there. But I need to get you a t-shirt so you're not advertising Adidas as well. But we'll put it there. So if you do want to share it, or you want to watch it again, or you want to see something that we've said, it will be there. You can watch that. But otherwise, thank you very much. And
Thanks
thank
for listening,
Laz and
guys.
Kathy
Thank
for
you.
their time today as well. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.